Hi, everyone. Welcome to Around the Campfire. I'm Jamie Sonley, Marketing Director at Northwoods, and your Around the Campfire host. I'm so thrilled to have two of our finest digital marketing minds here with me this morning, Alex Boston, our SEO content lead, and Ed Kozlowski, our digital marketing practice lead, to talk about a new and very hot topic called Generative Search Optimization, or GEO for short. So thank you both so much for joining me. We'll dive into Geo here in a minute, but if you are new to our podcast, we always start out with a personal trivia question for each of our guests. So today's question, and you guys keep me on my toes because you guys are frequent guests, so I have to come up with new questions all the time. But today's question is, if you could move anywhere in the world, where would you move? So either one of you can jump in first.
Ooh, that's a tough one. I think if I had a place to move, it would probably be Prague. And there's a
Oh,
couple reasons
I
why.
love
It's
that.
kind of central in Europe to get around. There's a lot of outdoor activities nearby, and the beer is really good and cheap.
I like it. It's good reasoning.
Yeah, it
Alex?
sounds like the Wisconsin of Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say I've made for the mountains. So I would
Mm,
move somewhere either near the Rockies or Montana is one of my favorite places. So that's probably where I would go.
Where in Montana?
yeah.
I really enjoy Bozeman and Missoula.
Hmm.
Um, so that area there and over by Glacier is just incredibly cool
So
as well.
pretty.
So just that
Yeah.
whole western side of the state is just gorgeous.
Nice.
I'm drinking coffee from Montana right here. That I
Ooh,
was just there, so we
Oh,
bought a bunch of
nice.
coffee because we really liked it.
Right on.
perfect. And you didn't even know that Alex was going to say
Nope.
Montana, and like we didn't even plan this. So good job. All right, awesome. Well, if you guys do move there, take me with you, either place. Prague or Montana. I'm good with either. All right. Well, without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into generative search. So, this is such a new and explosive growth area that marketers and organizations generally are starting to pay a ton of attention to. But not all marketers have heard of it or understand exactly what it is and how to leverage it. So, it's really great to have you both here today to kind of help break it down for us. So, Ed, I'll start with you. Maybe you could start out by just sharing a brief explanation of what generative optimization is and why it's important at a high level, and then we'll go ahead and dive into more specifics.
Yeah, so we're referring to it as GEO or Generative Engine Optimization. People might have heard of it as AEO, which is Answer Engine Optimization. They're essentially the same thing. What we are doing now, and this is really part of our SEO, our traditional SEO efforts, we're kind of including it in that, is we are optimizing sites to show up on tools such as ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity, or any of these tools that maybe pulling data from Google and using it in their AI tool and pushing answers out there with resources. And in turn, you get traffic to clients. So we're spending a lot of time figuring out what's working or trying to figure out what's working. I think one thing we've been saying to our clients is this is new. SEO has been studied for what, 20, 30 years or so. So we have a pretty good idea what works. This has only been studied for a short period. So what we think works might be different in 6 months, a year, 2 years, and the traffic we expect to go up very substantially. So that's kind of an overview of what we've been doing for clients. It's important because not only is it getting you traffic, we're finding with some clients that people go on a tool such as ChatGPT doing their research, and then they come and convert very quickly. So getting your information on ChatGPT, they might be doing more research there right now, but still coming on your site and converting because depending on what their needs, they still need to get the product or the service from the client. So no matter where the content's being digested, it's still very beneficial to a website. The other side of that is on Google itself. The AI overview is something we're also kind of, it's both SEO and GEO in a way, but we're optimizing for that as well.
Awesome. Are you both seeing an uptick in traffic from AI platforms like ChatGPT to different client sites? And is that something that clients should kind of keep an eye on? Would you recommend that? And how is the best way for them to kind of keep tabs on what traffic is coming from AI tools?
Yeah, I think we are seeing for sites that have already made an investment in SEO, and this kind of feeds back to Ed's point about this being very new and us kind of still learning as far as what the best practices are. But what we're seeing so far is that sites that have invested in SEO and they're following those best practices and investing in the fundamentals are seeing upticks in traffic. And it varies by sector too. There's a lot of movement, especially in e-commerce stuff that seems to be a little bit more intensive. So we're seeing, bigger swings towards and learning models and other tools that people are using to enhance their search. But across the board, anybody that was doing well in search is seeing a little bit of a trickle start to come in from these engines, and their Google's guidance is still very much that, like, for their AI overview feature and for all the AI stuff that they interact with, the best thing you can do to end up in that feature is to rank #1 on Google for a given term. So the fundamentals are still the same. So the places that are investing in that or have invested in that are seeing more traffic currently come from that than they were in the past.
That's good to know. Are there any specific tools that you recommend that use to keep tabs on what's happening in that AI referral space?
Yeah, so Google Analytics, it's currently a little bit of a workaround at the moment. I'm hopeful that in the future we'll have a more direct way of seeing this traffic and kind of filtered specifically by these sources. But right now, you can use Google Analytics to identify. It's currently classed as referral traffic. So it's basically the same as traffic that would be treated as a backlink. You can look under there and then you can sort by source. And you can look for the ChatGPT domain or the Perplexity domain and access that traffic from there as referral traffic. Hopefully what we get in future is just a whole AI channel in those tools that we can just break down that way. But for now, filtering by that is one of the best ways to keep tabs of that traffic.
Perfect. Ed, you and Alex both have mentioned that Google's latest algorithm update, which occurred December 2024, maybe early January, went into early January, that had a significant impact on search rankings overall. And what role did AI play in that update, and what impact did that have on SERP features specifically?
So it is an interesting question. I'm not 100% sure if it was direct from that update, but I think something coming out of that, what we're seeing now is a huge jump on Google of the SERP features. And one of the big ones stepping up is the AI overview on Google when you do your normal searches. So I think it's probably part of it. I don't know for sure if it officially is, but what we saw is, if you were very reliant on blog content, you kind of took a step back in rankings in December going into January. We're starting to see that recover for most sites, or whether it's their blogs or their product or service pages are starting to kind of really take those rankings over and actually see higher increases in ranks now. We're seeing those SERP features not just AI overview. We're seeing all of them kind of step up. Probably on 80% of clients, I would anecdotally say we're seeing that's where some of the rankings are now starting to come from. Something we've always had in front of our clients, but we're making more of a point because we're seeing a shift in, hey, obviously SERP features were always important, but now they're becoming more important as we go forward here. So that's a big shift that we've been seeing.
Yeah, and I think there's a broad shift in Google's philosophy, driving away from clicking through to content for users and trying to serve as much as possible and answer those questions as much as possible that people have in the results pages. So I wouldn't be surprised, and we've seen some of this with our own clients and across the industry. I know it's something that's being seen across the board. If search traffic becomes a little bit less voluminous than it has in the past, it's, kind of condensing a bit, but engagement is still high. And in fact, in some places, it's actually increasing as traffic becomes more relevant because people are kind of weeding down and defining their search a lot more and getting to know their topic that they're looking or they're searching on way before they even click on a page. So we're seeing better engagement on a lot of sites from organic search traffic, which is great. It's already been a very high engagement channel and one that's very likely to engage and convert. So the fact that that's increasing proves that there is, some usefulness to the shift that Google has made, and it's funneling the traffic a little bit more effectively. But yeah, we are definitely seeing the numbers of overall traffic starting to shift a little bit downwards. And as Ed mentioned, the type of traffic that's getting highlighted or the type of content rather that's getting highlighted in search has definitely changed away from some of the more timely blog elements to more static and steady elements on your site.
And to add it to that, I think this is why it's so important you measure things beyond sessions and users on your site and actually measure key events / conversions, making sure you're getting that number. Because if people start working more in ChatGPT and only going to your site to convert, if you're measuring that conversion, you can tell the impact still, right? That you're still getting people. And that's why it's still, no matter where people learn about something, whether it's on Google or ChatGPT or Gemini or your site, you need to get people to what you need to get them to your goal, right? Whatever that is, whether it's e-commerce or a form submission, and you need to measure that and effectively understand, is what we're doing, is that increase in SERP features and ChatGPT traffic leading to more conversions? Because that's what we ultimately want.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes so much sense. So this is a good segue into the next question, which is for you, Alex, and Ed, jump in too if you would like. But every time, there's some type of significant change in the search landscape, like generative engine optimization, it's really critical to review your content strategy to ensure that it remains effective. And I know you mentioned, Alex, that ranking high in search is what's going to help you with AI at this point. But what are some other recommendations you have for marketers in terms of adjusting their content strategies for AI-driven search?
Yeah, I would say for now, we don't know enough to cause dramatic shifts in content strategy. I think we're still very much studying what works. And if there's anything in particular, there's a lot of folks right now who are claiming to have hacks for these sort of things that I'm not sure I really buy at the moment, that often come not substantiated by data. So I think it will take more time to really understand if this needs to change dramatically. In the meantime, I would say that, we've just mentioned blog content, for example. I think it still serves a purpose within your content strategy. It's just understanding that where it used to be kind of a priority way of gathering up some traffic into your site and a primary way that people might find you, blog content is more of just a way of building your authority and Google's understanding of what your site covers. So still important, but just don't be surprised if it doesn't garner a lot of traffic itself. But if you start writing blog content, the rest of your site and your domain may start ranking for those keywords that you're writing about. So it can enhance your overall search profile. It's just probably not going to be a major source of traffic the way it used to be, or may have been for your site in the past. I'd say in general, diversifying the type of content you serve up is one thing that you can do immediately, because we have a lot of SERP features that are devoted to images, to videos, to events, to lots of different forms of content. And then making sure that all of that stuff has the necessary structured data in order for it to be, served up in search results and rich results. So making sure your schema.org stuff is in line and ready to be served in search results is another component there. And then just broadly speaking, the fundamentals of good SEO still apply. Make sure the technical stuff is in line. You have good web governance in place that's constantly updating content and keeping stuff maintained, and getting a regular cadence of creating new content, just like always. So the fundamentals are still there. It's just maybe try some, get experimental and try some new forms of content to see what helps your site rank, because it's a good time to do so at the moment with all the different kinds of rich results that are available in search.
Yeah, and I think to add on to that, one thing that I'm confident will help GEO and SEO, especially in the long run, is spending a little extra time in writing high quality, good content that is factual, based on research when it's relevant, and making sure you're putting out actually good information and about your product, about things like that, things people want to read, not just putting like kind of content to put content, right? If it's high quality, that's what we see is kind of future proof in terms of Google algorithm updates. We know that's what the AI tools are shooting for. They want to push out better and better information. And one thing I'd say is the structure of how you do things on your site. If you have questions, if you're answering them, if you're using your H1, your H2s properly, your bulleted list, your numbered list, if you even go do a search on one of these AI tools, they're pulling out content and putting it in bulleted lists and things like that, because that's what people want to read. That's ultimately what they want to pull from your site so they can translate it onto their tool, or it's going to help you rank, kind of as Google always has, having that proper page structure.
So basically, in terms of creating high quality content, people should not just rely on an AI tool to create all of their content for them.
No.
Correct?
No, you need to use the tool to make what you're doing faster, and it can come up with great content, but you need to review it. You need to edit it. You need to prompt it. to the point that what's going out there is quality. I think when it first came out, a lot of people were just letting the AI tool do all the writing. Then we found out it's really not pushing out great content. Yes, it's going to get better over time as it learns things, but you're there to make sure it's going in the right direction, or that you're enhancing what it's doing, or it's enhancing what you're doing to the point that you trust what you're putting on your website.
Yeah, I think and when it comes to content quality and content focus, I think putting that investment in at the onset too, making sure that you're doing keyword research and targeting stuff that makes sense. In the wake of the December update, where we saw a lot of the sort of tangential broad audience keywords melt off in terms of rankings for a lot of sites. And the rankings they actually held on to were the stuff that was really, really core to what their site offered. But there was a tendency, and I know I've written content like this, to go after those broad keywords that were only sort of relevant to what you actually offered, but because they had so much traffic, you would go after them to try and build your overall search profile. I would say really investing in the onset in terms of not just quality of content, but relevance of content to your space is another big deal. So don't be afraid to go after those terms that are lower value if they're more relevant to you, because you're more likely to hold and keep those rankings in the long run with that content.
Yeah, that's great advice. I'm curious to know too if you both are seeing any difference in or making any different types of recommendations to B2B versus B2C organizations, or is everybody kind of experiencing the same kind of their GEO output at this point, regardless of their content strategy?
From what I'm seeing is it tends to be a lot more industry specific. And if your product is something that requires research, or people want to understand product information about it, they're going to go to an AI tool, versus other products that I've worked on that are more, I guess it was B2B, but they're not something you're going to research as much. So people just kind of go to Google, find the product, and go purchase it. And they don't have that. It's not they have no educational step. It's just much smaller than other products. A highly engineered product, people are going to want to know about why something's done, or the features and what benefits you end up getting from that. Where kind of some products that have been more vetted out over time, you don't need to research as much. And that's where you start to see people kind of go straight to the product in those cases.
That makes sense. So Ed, since you're our digital advertising guru as well, tell us, what are the implications of generative engine optimization and AI search on digital advertising these days?
So, well, for one, Perplexity is allowing you to do ads right in their tool. And I think that's the thing you need to look for coming up. There's going to be a point where these tools they need to monetize more and more outside of subscriptions. They're going to start running ads. The example I'll give, YouTube, 6 years ago, you're watching videos and you see maybe one ad. At this point, I watch a 10-minute video. I'm seeing 3 ads in those 10 minutes almost every time. It's going to happen. You're going to start to see that showing up in your searches. I think that's okay, right? People, if we want these tools, they need to monetize, they need to make money so we can utilize them. And it's going to become more like Google search in that sense. Like, I don't think you're going to be seeing things interrupting, although who knows, we'll see how that goes, but it'll be stuff on the sides, or maybe part of your results will be sponsored versus just simply getting a informational answer.
Yeah. Okay. So given all of this crazy change that we're experiencing right now, if you guys had to consult your crystal ball and peer into the future, what are some predictions about how geo will continue to evolve and the impact it might have on marketing strategy? I know you guys have mentioned a little bit already, but anything else that you want to bring up that marketers should kind of look to in the future, potentially from an impact point of view?
Yeah, I'd say there's going to be, in my opinion, this kind of building out of this user intent focus that Google is seeing, and trying to understand more specifically what people are looking for when they're searching for specific terms. And they're going to try and, like I said, draw as much as possible of that into the search page itself. And so I think eventually there's going to be this sort of decentralization of web content where it's not all website focused, where there's going to be sort of this central body of knowledge that gets gathered in these other tools. That means that people navigate to your website probably less than they did before. And that doesn't necessarily matter so long as people still convert. The tricky thing will be continuing to keep your analytics on track and making sure you can attribute and understand where all of this traffic is coming from. And then, the perpetual frustration of SEOs is trying to understand, what are we optimizing around, and what are Google's priorities, and how are they shifting things, because they're famously pretty close-lipped on how they're thinking about stuff. So if we have another set of tools that we need to interact with, then do we have another black box that we're interacting with and trying to optimize around? So I do think it's going to be challenging, and I think it's going to require a lot of digital marketers to try and keep up with additional new tools that are popping up and additional sources of information. We used to really only have to try and understand Google, and I think, yes, ChatGPT and referral tools like that are slowly growing. It's not dramatically fast. It's not very fast, but they're already starting to compete with the lesser search engines like Bing, or the less used search engines. So I think it won't be long until they pass those and then become, a solid source of traffic. So I do think we're going to have to be on our toes and be trying to study new sources of information all the time.
Yeah, so buckle up, in other words, right?
Yeah, I do think it's every bit as transformational as I think people say it will be. It's just that there's a slow gearing up period where right now I think people are learning and the fundamentals are still in place, but I do think there's probably big change for how we think about the internet and how it's structured coming around the corner.
Yeah, it feels like the early days of the internet to me, where everything was sort of the wild, wild west. It's that transformative, to your point, it feels like. So
right.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
To piggyback on that, I think the way people use things is going to shift a lot in the next 10 years, meaning maybe even not that long, but, glasses popping up more and more. And I think people get much more conversational, where they're talking to the AI more often versus on the computer searching. Think about if you're working on something like a car and you can kind of talk to AI while you do it, and it can help walk you through the process or remember to do something. And then that's where the marketing steps in, because person doing that might need a product and it's pulling information from your site, and they'll go back to the sources providing that. So I think there's going to be a big shift, not just glasses. It's going to be, I don't know exactly, but I think there's going to be more of that day-to-day interaction with everything people are doing. I mean, we've been training on our phones now for years to constantly be interacting with computers, and now it's going to become more of a, I don't even need to hold a phone necessarily. Maybe I have headphones in and I'm talking to it all the time type thing. Who knows? But I think that's going to shift, and that'll impact how we do things, right? And one of the things for GEO is people are suggesting write conversations like conversationally versus just writing like you would online normally. I don't know if I personally buy that yet, because I would think the content can be taken from your site. If it's on your site, it should be read, right? How should someone read it? AI is going to be able to take that and change that to a conversation, is how I think that'll go.
Interesting.
I think we're already seeing those cues being a part of content too. Like a lot of the pages that are ranking more and more highly are pages that I look at with, FAQ features and things that are devoted to answering those questions more directly.
And step by steps too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like it is actively trying to coach people through exactly the process that they're trying to learn more about, or whatever of information they're trying to have. So I think it's more important than ever, because search engines are getting smarter at this. AI is getting smarter at this, at interpreting what the user is looking for, to try and understand your users and to try and serve them with your content as much as possible and address their needs.
Yeah. Well, we will see if all your predictions come true over the next couple of years, right?
One thing I'll add is I wonder if at some point we start getting like data or prompt data from these AI tools, kind of like we do on Google. And I would speculate it's going to be more in the form of, here's the types of questions people ask about marketing, and you'll understand that, versus like, hey, someone searches the keyword digital marketer 10,000 times a month. We'll just know here's the types of prompts they're doing for digital marketing.
Yeah, that's a really good point too. Alex, I want to ask a follow-up question to something you mentioned, which is you brought up Bing. And I have heard that in order to really be able to optimize for ChatGPT in particular, you really need to be optimized for Bing. Can you talk a little bit about that? Is that the case, or how does Bing kind of play into all of the AI generated search at this point?
First off, there isn't a ton of difference between search engine optimization for Bing and for Google. They're mostly the same principles. The only difference is the actual search experience and then how they prioritize results. So the broad process is pretty much the same. They have the same crawl, they have their own algorithm, but it applies mostly the same priorities in terms of you need to look for in content to rank well. That's not true across the board, but they're pretty closely aligned. There's nuances, but it's nothing major. So I would say just the broad focus of SEO of just making sure your content is clean and intuitive, keyword focused, relevant, linked to from as many places as you can possibly get it to that are high quality domains, and just doing your general SEO best practices will still benefit you on Bing as well and serve you well in AI because it will make you more visible in search. And those two algorithms are overlapping a lot right now. There's a lot of drawing from search data to try and pull the most relevant results in AI tools at the moment. So certainly optimizing for Bing can't hurt, but you're probably going to be doing that anyway if you're focused on Google.
That makes sense. So nothing on the technical side that you need to do differently for Bing versus Google.
Yeah, not particularly. There may be some structured data differences, and admittedly, I don't pay much attention to Bing, and maybe that's something that I should be looking at a little bit more. But there may be some structured data difference as far as rich results that they serve up that are distinct, and their own features that are evolving. But it's just a matter of what kind of tags you use on page and kind of some minor structural things that wouldn't necessarily be that much different from how to focus on Google. So I think, broadly speaking, I wouldn't expect that to change for them to divert very much. But I think if you're doing the general best practices, again, you're probably hitting AI appropriate stuff as well.
Perfect. Is there anything else that we haven't touched on yet that either of you would like to add relative to geo?
Yeah, I think one of the things we hear that is a buzz word or buzz thing to go after is SEO is dying. And I don't think that's true. I think there's a couple ways to look at this. GEO and SEO are very much in line with each other. We kind of consider them two different things as different talking points so people understand what we're optimizing for. But they're both, at the end of the day, maybe the best way to put it is digital marketing engine optimization or something like that, right? It's more we're optimizing for the various engines. Traditionally, we were, as we were just talking about for Google and Bing, right? You were optimizing for Google, but the same things work in Bing for the most part. So we always have been optimizing for both. That's true with GEO. We might learn it's a different things we have to do from it, but it's still the same concept of what we've always done. The other side of that is Google.com is it's gonna be strong for a long time. And even let's say it dies out in 15 years, you have a lot of money you can make on Google.com during that time. I don't think it's gonna die out. I think the way it works is gonna shift more into AI. They launched AI search. It's not widespread yet. I think it's more on your phone, but there's probably ways on the desktop too that you can go on and use that type of search, which is kind of a beta right now. And we're going to see that type of thing come in. So I think it's just going to be a shift in maybe terminology of things, but it's conceptually going to be the same thing, which with SEO, if you actually go back through all the algorithm updates, through all the time, they all push towards the same thing: high quality content, not spamming a search engine, making sure the quality is there for the user when they're utilizing. That's what these tools are going to go for too. So it's going to be an evolution in that.
Yeah, I think that's a really key point. The point about the quality has kind of been eternal throughout SEO. And so, to say that search engine optimization is dead is kind of strange to me when it really is about creating high quality and relevant and authoritative content. That practice has throughout all the times, and I think I remember reading my first article saying that SEO was dead in 2016 or something like that. Like, it's been a persistent thing that this is just no longer a practice we need to worry about anymore. And Google is dying, or Google's losing its relevance. And right now, there was a little bit of a downturn over the last couple of years in Google search volume. Now it's recovering again. So I
Yeah.
think, generally speaking, there's no real sign or data to validate that Google is going to lose its prominence in this anytime soon, which means the practices of SEO and stuff that they're giving us in terms of guidance is still going to be relevant. And we're all interacting with the same tool set, and we're all trying to create high quality content, whether you call it SEO or GEO. So I think that's the biggest thing to remember, is just that this has been something that's been said before. I do think we'll have to keep new tactics in mind as things change. And obviously we want to stay open to, learning new things and new tactics. But generally, I don't see any sign that this is not something that we have to keep in mind.
Yeah, saying something is dead is really good clickbait. So yeah,
Yeah.
especially
Yeah,
something
that's
as
exactly right.
complex as
Exactly.
SEO. So it's like,
And-
ooh,
and-
I can take that off my plate. Great.
Yep. Yep.
Right. Yeah. And that's just not the case. It's still the most engaged traffic source for the least amount of investment from a budget standpoint. So it's kind of a no-brainer that doing search engine optimization and trying to get the bigger share of organic content, you got to go after it because it's such an engaged channel.
I think a way to look at it too is like in search, there's a funnel, right? There's very awareness-based search, there's consideration, and then there's more sale, kind of bottom of the funnel. If anything, AI is probably on that awareness part, right? Like that's where people are learning, they're asking questions, and then they're going to go more to the Google search where they can go straight to the experts and find out, hey, you have this highly engineered product, or let's say glasses that maybe someone, asked questions about, learn about, and now they need to find that product. They're going to go over to Google to find that product, at least for now.
Yeah. I think that brings up a really important point too, which is sometimes structuring your keyword strategy in that way is worth doing. Thinking in terms of where are my broad funnel, high volume, broadest reach keywords, then where are the keywords that are for people that I think target audiences that are maybe a little bit further on in their process or know a little bit more. Kind of dividing that up by the knowledge or the place in the process where your audience might be, and thinking about it almost the way you would a paid campaign, like granularly as far as where you're reaching someone in a funnel and search, can be a very good way of kind of guiding and creating a more deliberate keyword strategy for what content you want to be producing.
Yeah, excellent. You guys, this has been such a fabulous discussion. My wheels are already turning. I'm sure those who are listening to this are spinning wheels as well. Really great ideas that you're sharing. So thank you so much for joining me. And thanks to everyone for tuning in. If you've joined us for the first time or you want to catch prior Around the Campfire episodes, visit our podcast playlist on YouTube or visit our website at nwsdigital.com/around the campfire. So thanks again for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you again very soon. Take care.